It's time to savor the moment and enjoy what's happening right now. I know that's hard in this age of high anxiety, which is why folks call my next guest. She is the owner of a company called Big Toe in the Water, and she teaches the life-changing practice of mindfulness. Harriet Stein, it is so good to meet you at the counter.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Grover. Thank you.
Yeah, so you've had your big toe in the water in and around Philadelphia, in this region, for some time.
I have. I was raised in Northeast Philadelphia, going to a lot of counters, a lot of diners, making a lot of memories.
Right, you have great memories, and you've held on to them all these years,
Exactly.
which is, I think, where we're going with mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Why mindfulness? How do we know if we have it, if we don't have it?
Mindfulness, all it really is paying attention to this very moment. This is the only moment that exists. And you know, when you do start paying attention, you notice you are rarely in this moment. You're thinking about something from the past that no matter how hard you try, you can never change, or you're worrying about something in the future. And you miss the present moment right here, what's in front of you.
Right. How many folks really suffer from this kind of anxiety, if you will? Worrying about the past, worrying about the future?
Yeah, I think everybody does, actually. I mean, nowadays, it's so easy to really lose our attention on things. I was teaching a class in New York last year, and a woman said that her child came running off the soccer field and took the phone out of his mother's hand and said, "You are here to watch me, not do this." And, you know, I thought to myself, you know, we get these notifications on our phone, you know, every time we get an email or a text message or breaking news, somebody walked down the Capitol steps, right? But, you know, the phone is never going to notify you of the look of disappointment on your child's face if you're not paying attention to them.
Are men less mindful than women, or vice versa? How does that
Now,
work?
it's not gender specific, though there's fascinating research that they did a few years ago, and they asked people to choose between silence or having a mild electric shock. I know, and here's the sad results. People were actually choosing the mild electric shock, and one of the people chose to shock themselves 190 times.
Wow.
Even
because 189 just wasn't enough?
I know. Even though the Harvard Business Review says that solitude is the competitive advantage. I mean, that's why I teach mindfulness in companies.
Right.
Because, you know, employees need to know a practice that can help them quickly. This is fast. It doesn't take like months to learn how to pay attention. It's like right now, you know, so.
So the benefits, number one, being that in terms of your work life, you'll remember what you have to do.
Exactly. And this way, when they go to work, they actually might remember what it was like when they left their house and maybe did the commute, because so many times nowadays, people don't even remember anything they're doing.
Is there like a step-by-step to mindfulness that you teach companies, organizations, individuals?
I always say, I always base my programs based on how much time they have. But I'm like, even give me an hour, and if you pay attention, your life is like never going to be the same. Because it's very quick for me to be able to explain to somebody how to do this practice. Because just like paying attention to what you're eating, it's a lot different when you're noticing the food versus if you're eating and writing an email in your head at the same time.
Right.
And then you look down and you like have no recollection of what it is that you ate.
Right. You remember how big it was at one point? I don't know if it still is, but everyone had to multitask. You had to be good at multitasking. And yet, isn't that, you know, the precursor to unmindfulness?
It's true. Multitasking does not work. Stanford did the research over a decade ago, and I always tell people that the only way multitasking works is if you're folding your laundry and watching TV. That's about the only type of multitasking that works. But, you know, it truly doesn't work.
So what kind of tips can you give our viewers, myself and our viewers? You know, maybe 3 or 4 solid, fundamental tips that we could do right now.
Well, first I'm going to start with this wonderful quote that you might have heard from Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz.
Yes, one of my favorite people.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you remember at the end of The Wizard of Oz, she says to Dorothy, "You had the power all along to go home." And Dorothy's like, what? And the Scarecrow is like, why didn't you tell her? And Glinda says, it wouldn't have mattered. She had to learn it herself.
Right.
So when you talk about tips, all it is paying attention to what it is that you're doing right now with non-judgment. This is a practice of compassion. So if you're eating, eat. You know, if you're walking, walk. You know, it's really just that simple. It's just really paying attention to what it is that's going on in your life and noticing all these thoughts that are going through your heads. And if it is something from the past, just seeing if you can just notice that and be like, okay, it's a past memory, it's over, it's done with. I always ask people to think back on a time in their life that no matter how old they get, they're always going to remember it. And usually the number one answer I get, what do you think it is?
When I don't know.
I can tell you. It is the birth of their child.
Of course.
It is the
I was
birth
going
of
to
their
say
child.
that.
I know. See that? Yeah, save. Quick save.
My wife will be looking saying, there you go. He needs mindfulness.
Right. Well, you know, it's because people are very much not multitasking during that experience. They're very, very present, and it stays with them.
Are you married with children? Or
I'm
children?
married, but unfortunately, my children have 4 legs. So,
oh, geez. Well,
yes.
we don't expect mindfulness from, you know, a terrier.
right. I did teach mindfulness to my niece when she was 4.5 years old. And so I have taught it to children, and I think it is...
How does that go?
Oh, children, now it's being taught in so many elementary schools.
Right.
So with my niece, I remember she came outside once, and it was dark and cold out, and my sister and her were walking to the car, and she screamed, "Mom, stop!" My sister almost had a heart attack. She's like, "What's the matter?" And she goes, "Let's pause, let's notice. Can we see the moon?
Wow.
Are there stars out? Is it cold?" So kids, of course, take this. I mean, it's very easy to learn for adults, and kids, of course, love it as well.
Right.
Which is wonderful that they're teaching it in the schools, because then the parents want to know what is going on that my child now is not as stressed out, because I want you now to teach it to all my children and my husband. So it's actually been a wonderful ripple effect.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, Harriet, I want to thank you for coming to the counter, and I'll tell you, I feel more mindful than I have been in a long time, and I credit it to you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to remember
so
this
much.
forever.
I'm going to be mindful of that.
Thank you.
Harriet Stein, teacher of mindfulness and owner of Big Toe in the Water.